Bee by Britta Teckentrup. Dawn is breaking on a brand new day, and in the meadow poppies sway. A bee appears, striped black and gold. A wonder of nature is about to unfold. In the treetops, birds start to sing. The little bee beats her wings. As she travels here and there, a gentle humming fills the air. Back and forth, to and fro, bee knows exactly where to go. Visiting flowers of every hue, she has a special job to do. Gathering nectar as she goes, from every foxglove, every rose, dusty with pollen, the little bee buzzes busily. Bee travels on from bloom to bloom, drawn in by their sweet perfume. Harvesting flowers one by one, her compass is the midday sun. Among the orchard's apple trees, blossoms quiver in the breeze. Carrying pollen from place to place, bee always leaves a tiny trace. Flowers as far as the eye can see. Too many flowers for just one bee. All of a sudden, bee is gone. She has a message to pass on. Back at the hive, bee spreads the news. There's work to be done, no time to lose. Listen for their gentle humming. The word is out, the bees are coming. Buzzing over the dense hedgerows, past the pond where wild thyme grows. Through the orchard's sweet-smelling scent, the bees travel on with calm intent. As lilies glow orange in the sun, the bees must finish what they've begun, stopping at every flower they find, leaving the gift of pollen behind. The bees pass over a woodland stream. Droplets sparkle and pebbles gleam. Water trickles, bubbles and weaves. A weeping willow trails its leaves. As the bees fly on through buds and burrs, a tiny miracle occurs. So many plants and flowers you see were given life by one small bee. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Bee. Bees by Karen Hartley and Chris Macro. What are bees? Bees are furry insects with 6 legs and 2 pairs of transparent wings. They flap their wings so quickly that they make a buzzing sound as they fly. There are different kinds of bees, and each kind has queens, drones, and worker bees. Some bees live together in nests, but some live by themselves. Where do bees live? Bumblebees live together in a nest in long grass or underground. Bees choose to live in places where flowers grow, like parks and gardens. Honeybees live together in a nest in a hollow tree or log. Sometimes people keep honeybees in a wooden hive. We are going to look at some honeybees. What do bees look like? Bees have brown and yellow hairs on their bodies. They make the bees' brown and yellow stripes. All bees have 2 large eyes that can see up, down, backward, and forward at the same time. They also have 3 small eyes. They have 2 antennae for touching and smelling. How big are bees? Bumblebees like this one are about the size of a large grape. Honeybees are about the size of a jelly bean. Sometimes their tongues are not long enough to reach the nectar in big flowers. Queen bees are always bigger than worker bees and drones. Worker bees are always the smallest kind in the nest. There is only 1 queen in each nest. How are bees born? In the spring, the queen bee mates with a drone. She lays her eggs in special places called cells inside the nest. After 3 days, the larvae hatch from the eggs. They are small and white. They have no eyes, no legs, and no wings. They are fed by the worker bees. How do bees grow? After 5 days, the larvae turn into pupae and begin to turn into adult bees. After 2 weeks, the new bees push off the tops of the cells and crawl out. The bees' bodies are very soft, but they soon get harder. Most of the new bees are worker bees, and at first they work inside the nest. What do bees eat? Bees eat the pollen from flowers. They bring nectar from the flowers to the nest to make into honey. They eat the honey in cold weather. When the larvae are in the cells, they need to eat to grow. Worker bees feed them honey and pollen. Which animals attack bees? Queens and worker bees will sting if they are frightened or angry. Their stripes give a warning to other insects not to come near them. Some birds, like the one in the picture, eat bees. Some worker bees stand at the entrance of the nest to guard it. They will fight bees from other nests if they have come to steal honey. How do bees move? All bees have strong wings, so they can fly a long way to look for food. When it is hot, they fan with their wings to keep the nest cool. When bees land on a flower, they crawl inside it to suck up the nectar and collect pollen. They wave their antennae to help them smell and taste. How long do bees live? Queen bees die in the autumn after 6 or 7 years. Princess and worker bees hibernate during winter. The worker bees will die next summer after the new workers have hatched. Worker bees push the drones out of the nest in the autumn and stop them from coming back in. The drones die because they have no food to eat. What do bees do? Some eggs hatch into princess bees. When there are too many bees in a nest, the old queen takes a swarm to find a new nest. A princess becomes the new queen. Gardeners like worker bees because they take pollen from flower to flower. This makes new seeds for new plants. Many people like to eat the honey that bees make. How are bees special? Bees have long hairs on their back legs, which work like baskets. They put pollen from flowers into the baskets. Their legs look like yellow balloons. Bees do a special flying dance to show other bees where there are lots of flowers. Sometimes they dance in a shape like the number 8. Thinking about bees. This honeybee is covered with pollen. Where do you think this bee is going to take the pollen? What are some things that might happen to the pollen? This person is collecting honeycomb to make honey from the beehive. Why do you think beekeepers wear gloves and a veil? Bee map. Antennae, head, large eyes, small eyes, thorax, middle part of body, legs, abdomen, tail end of body, transparent wings. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Bees by the editors of Time for Kids with Elizabeth Winchester. What's that buzzing? It sounds like a bee. Bees are insects. They have 6 legs and 4 wings. When a bee flies, its wings make a buzzing sound. Bees use their antennas to smell. They use their front legs and long tongue to taste. Bees sip a juice called nectar from flowers. Bees also eat pollen from flowers. They carry pollen to other flowers. This helps flowers make seeds. There are many kinds of bees. Bees can be black, yellow, or red. They can even be blue or bright green. Leafcutter bees are big bees. They can be up to 1 1/2 inches long, but some bees are very small. You can hardly see them. Bees live almost everywhere. They do not live at the North and South poles. Bees build homes called nests. Honeybees live in groups called colonies. Beekeepers build homes for honeybees. These homes are called hives. That is amazing! As many as 70,000 bees can live in one hive. That is about as many people as go to the Super Bowl. Each bee in a hive has an important job. There is one queen bee in each hive. She is the biggest bee in the hive. Male honeybees mate with the queen. Then she lays eggs. In less than a month, an adult bee comes out. Other female honeybees are workers. Worker bees clean and protect the hive. They take care of the young. They bring back food for others. That is amazing! Only female bees have a stinger. Worker honeybees sting only once and then die. Honeybees use nectar to make honey. Workers put nectar into honeycomb cells. The cells are tiny rooms made of wax. The nectar turns into honey. Bees eat some of the honey. Beekeepers collect the rest from the hive. We eat honey that we get from honeybees. We also get beeswax. It is used to make crayons and candles. Bees help make the world more beautiful. Hooray for bees! Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Bees Are Our Friends by Tony D'Alia and Allison Lindstrom. Down in the garden, up high in a tree, is a busy beehive and one little bee. She hops and she twirls. She's off on her way. She zips through the garden and out for the day. She zooms to a flower and lands on the top. She sips the sweet nectar and stores every drop. She plays in the pollen. It sticks to her hair. She flies off again and soars through the air. She spreads pollen dust. She visits each flower. She pollinates the garden. That's her special power. The pollen she spreads helps plants to grow. New life gives the garden a very special glow. Bugs make their homes in the flowers and trees. Fruits and veggies grow, thanks to the work of bees. The one little bee takes her treasure home. She stores away nectar and makes honeycomb. The sun slowly sets, and one little bee sleeps in her hive up high in a tree. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Don't Eat Bees, Life Lessons from Chip the Dog by Dev Petty and Mike Bolt. I am a smart dog. I'm only 7, but that is practically 50 in person years, so I already know several important dog things, like how cats are awfully self-important for animals who poop in a box. I know you can dig one big hole and put 30 bones in it, or dig 30 holes and put a bone in each. Another thing I know, somehow these are all dogs. Yes, all of them, even that one. But most of my vast knowledge involves what to eat and what not to eat. I will share what I know. Do eat socks. That is why they come in pairs. There's a spare one just for you. Don't eat bees. Do eat important papers, like the ones the small persons work on when they finally come home after forever. Pro tip: if you eat them, your small persons will have to stay home to make new important papers. But don't eat bees. Do eat the giant bird they cook at Thanksgiving. Grab what you can and run. It's a fun game, and you deserve a little fun. Remember all those papers you ate? Bees? No. Do eat Grandpa's teeth. It will make Grandpa smile, and that, my friend, will make everyone smile. But don't eat bees. Do eat the cat food, just because you can. Who's a dumb dog now, Mittens? Not me. I don't eat bees. Do eat the foods your small person doesn't like to eat. This will make them love you, and they will scratch that special itchy spot you can't reach. Yes, please. No bees. Eat the car. Eat plants. Eat dirt. Comes with plants. Eat shoes. Eat the couch. It had it coming. Eat the mail. For sure, eat the sandwich. It was obviously for you, since it had all your favorite stuff in it. Don't eat lemons, or fire, or bees. See? I know a lot of things. I am so smart that I can tell you I would never, ever do something as silly as eating a bee. No, sir. Never, ever, ever. Again. But cactuses? Mittens has been telling me good things about cactuses. I am a smart dog. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Honeybee's Busy Day by Richard Fowler. It was a warm, sunny day, and Honeybee was busy gathering nectar from the flowers to make into honey. Honeybee flew out of a bright red poppy and into a blue cornflower. Honeybee flew out of the cornflower and into a yellow iris growing by the pond. "Hello," quacked some ducks, "coming for a swim?" "Sorry, I'm too busy," hummed Honeybee as she disappeared into the reeds. "Care for a fly?" croaked a friendly frog. "No, thanks," hummed Honeybee. "I'm too busy," and she flew up into a tree. "Would you like a nut?" squeaked a squirrel. "No, thanks. I'm too busy," hummed Honeybee as she flew down through the leaves. "Like a carrot?" asked a rabbit, popping out of his hole. "No, thanks. I'm going back to the beehive," hummed Honeybee, and she flew over the fence. "Buzz off," growled a grumpy dog. "I'm gnawing my bone." "Sorry," hummed Honeybee, and vanished through the hedge. And into an orchard. "Hooray!" buzzed Honeybee. "There's my hive!" And she crawled inside. "You've been busy," said Honeybee's friends. "You must be tired and hungry. Would you like some honey?" "Yes, please," hummed Honeybee, and fell fast asleep. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. The Honeybee Man by Layla Nargi and Kristen Brooker. One quiet July dawn, Fred rolls out of his bed and into his slippers. He greets two members of his enormous family. "Good morning, Copper," he calls to his dog, still curled up on the rug. "Good morning, Cat," he calls to his cat named Cat. She stretches in a pool of sunlight. Fred shuffles downstairs to the kitchen and fixes a cup of tea. He takes his teacup in one hand and creaks back upstairs, then up another flight. Climbing a ladder that climbs the wall, he pushes open a hatch and pulls himself onto the roof. All around is quiet Brooklyn City, brownstones and linden trees, a tall clock tower, and bridges in the distance. Near the edge of the roof is another tiny city. It has 3 houses, each with 2 white stories and 1 red story, and inside, thousands of tiny rooms made of wax. From the outside, the tiny city also seems quiet. Fred inhales the smells of a summer city morning, maple leaves and gasoline and the river and dust. He turns to the tiny city and inhales its smaller, sweeter smell, a little like caramel, a little like ripe peaches. To the first little house, Fred calls, "Good morning, Queen Mab," and to the other 2 houses, "Good morning, Queen Nefertiti, good morning, Queen Boadicea." Then Fred greets the rest of his family, which has more members than he can count. "Good morning, my bees, my darlings." Inside their houses, the 3 queen bees and their thousands of worker bee daughters don't answer, but Fred knows they are busy. The queens are laying eggs, some workers are building wax rooms, some are feeding babies, some are making the hive tidy, others are getting ready to forage in flowers abloom all across Brooklyn. Fred closes his eyes and lets his mind wander. Will Queen Mab's daughters find mint flowers as they did last year? Will Queen Boadicia's honey be dark like molasses or light and clear like amber? As he thinks about honey, Fred's mouth begins to water. I can't wait to find out. Fred pictures the park at the end of his block. He imagines his bees moving from clover to clover, flying over them low and slow with their see-through wings, which flap and also twist like propellers. Fred wishes he could fly there with them, with the wind rushing over his back. Fred opens his eyes and the hives are alive, humming with a low hum, as low as a whisper. Fred hums back. "Tell me what it's like to fly through the world." Zzz, hum the bees. To Fred, this sounds like an answer. If only he could understand. Young bees on their first flights circle in the air. "There, there, my girls, don't be afraid," Fred says in a soothing voice. As he speaks, the young bees seem to pluck up their courage. On the streets below, trucks rumble and babies wail in their strollers, but inch by inch, the young bees shimmy past the edge of their tiny city. It is easy for Fred to recognize the older bees, who are used to moving between their small world and the giant world of people. They zip out of the hives and throw themselves at the air, embracing it with their wings. A few land on Fred's arms. "Hello, Fred," they seem to say. "Hello, girls. Have a nice day. Now off you go." Fred gives them a gentle flick with a finger, and away they zzz. Fred watches his bees fly into his backyard garden and other gardens on the block. He sees the bees dive into sweet pea and squash flowers. If he were closer, he could see them using their tube-like tongues to drink in flower nectar, which they store in honey sacs inside their bellies. Then it's off to the next pea plant, to the sage flowers in the next backyard, and maybe, if Fred is lucky, to blooming blueberry bushes somewhere across town. When the bees return to their hives, Fred notices that they are flying slowly, heavy now with nectar. Inside, Fred knows that they are performing waggle dances to tell the others where the best flowers grow. He knows that sister bees are taking the nectar and storing it in the tiny wax rooms. And he knows that others are fanning their wings to evaporate the water from the nectar so it will turn to honey. Day after day, Fred watches the bees zip out over the blare of the city. "How tireless you are," he sighs, wishing he could be as strong and as free as the bees. One afternoon at the end of August, Fred climbs again to his roof. He is wearing his black rubber rain boots and his white head veil and a scratch on his hand from Cat, the cat, who did not want to be woken this morning. He makes an announcement to the bees. "Sweeties, I have come for the honey. And a plea, please do not sting me." Fred puffs clouds of smoke into the tiny houses, and the bees burrow deep down into the hive. From the very top floor, Fred lifts out the honeycomb. He packs it into the buckets and says, "Thank you for this honey, bees." Zzz. Fred hauls the buckets down the ladder and into his house, where he banishes Copper, the honey-loving dog, to the kitchen. Fred sets a frame of honeycomb over a plastic tank and slices off the wax caps, and the honey begins to flow. He places the honeycomb in a spinning machine, which squeezes every last drip of honey out of it. He pours the honey into jars. Then he sticks labels to the jars. Fred's Brooklyn Honey, made by tireless Brooklyn bees. In the late afternoon, Fred sits on his stoop, enjoying the cool end-of-summer breeze. When his neighbors come out to chat, Fred gives each of them a jar of deep gold honey. One neighbor asks, "Where did this honey come from?" And Fred says, in a humming sort of whisper, "From the sweet pea flowers in your backyard, from the flowers of the linden trees shading our block, and maybe, if we are lucky, from sour sweet blueberry bushes somewhere across town." Up on Fred's roof, the bees are huddled back in their own city, waiting for the rays of tomorrow's sun to call them up and away over Brooklyn. Their wings are tattered from flying, and the nip of autumn is in the air. Soon it will be time to rest. Down on the stoop, Fred opens a jar of honey. The honey glistens and shimmers in the last of the sunlight. Fred sticks in a finger. It is sweet like linden flowers. It is sharp like rosemary. It is ever so slightly sour. "Ah," says Fred, absorbing these happy flavors. "Blueberries." Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. I Am a Bee by Rebecca and James McDonald. I am a bee. There are many types of bees. I'm a honeybee. I collect sweet nectar from flowers so I can make delicious honey. I also help plants make seeds through pollination. I'm part of a colony with a whole bunch of other honeybees. We're like one big family that works really hard together. My colony lives in a hive that is made of wax and special bee glue called propolis. Our hive is our house. Sometimes we like to build hives in trees, fallen logs, caves, or even between rocks. Choosing a safe place to build the hive is really important. There are lots of animals around that would love to eat bees or gobble up our honey. In a colony, every bee has a job to do. First, there's the queen bee. Her job is to make eggs. Next are the drone bees. Their job is to help the queen make eggs. Last but not least are the worker bees. That's what I am, and we have a whole bunch of jobs to do. As a young bee, my first jobs were to keep the hive clean and feed and take care of the colony. Luckily, worker bees are really good at working together and helping each other. As I grew, so did my jobs. Once my body was able to make wax, I became a builder. I made sure there were enough rooms for all the baby bees, and extra space to store lots of pollen and nectar that would be made into honey. By flapping our wings or vibrating our bodies, worker bees keep the hive at a perfect temperature, not too hot and not too cold, so wax can be shaped, glue can be spread, and honey can be made. Worker bees guard and protect the hive and the colony inside. As a guard, I had to be on the lookout for other insects and animals that might want to steal honey or damage the hive. Now that I'm an older bee, I have a new job. I'm a forager. Bees usually never leave the hive unless there's an emergency, or if they're foraging to find food and water. Being a forager is a really important job. I fly away looking for patches of blooming flowers that have lots of delicious pollen and sweet nectar. Nectar is a sugary juice, and pollen is a yellow dust. They're both my favorite foods. I crawl inside a flower and load up as much as I can carry. I have a special pouch in my stomach for carrying nectar, and I have pollen baskets on both of my back legs for when I'm carrying extra pollen. Pollen is really sticky, and I always end up covered in it. That makes plants happy, because when I fly to the next flower, I drop pollen, which helps plants make seeds. Scientists call this pollination. Lots of seeds mean more vegetables, fruits, and pretty flowers for everyone. If I come across a big patch of flowers, I fly back to the hive and tell the other foragers how to find it by doing the honeybee waggle dance. Round and round I go, wiggling and waggling. Storing lots of honey for winter is really important. When it's cold, honeybees stay inside the hive, eating the stored honey and flying close together in a big tight circle to keep warm. We make enough honey to last the winter and to share with people just like you. Scientists say bees like me are really helpful to people because we move pollen from plant to plant. We're part of the reason there are so many delicious fruits, vegetables, and nuts to choose from at the grocery store. Foragers fly all over the place. Sometimes that can cause us big problems. When we fly into places where people have sprayed chemicals to get rid of other bugs, it makes us get sick too. Chemicals can also drift into our hive, making it an unhealthy place to live. People can help bees by not using chemicals that make bees sick. You can help by sharing what you've learned about honeybees with family, friends, and in your classroom. What do honeybees live inside of? What do honeybees like to eat? How do forager bees tell each other where to find flowers? How do bees help people? How can people help bees? Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Little Bee by Edward Gibbs. Little bee, why do you flee? Because there's a hungry frog chasing me. Hungry frog, why do you flee? Because there's a scary snake chasing me. Scary snake, why do you flee? Because there's a mean mongoose chasing me. Mean mongoose, why do you flee? Because there's a fierce lion chasing me. Fierce lion, why do you flee? Because there's a big hunter chasing me. Big hunter, why do you flee? Because there's a little bee chasing me. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Little Bee. Written by Wednesday Jones. Illustrated by Gisela Borges. I started as a little egg, laid in a cozy bed. My mommy was the big queen bee. Hatch soon, my dears, she said. I hatched into a little grub, crawling on the floor. My hive mates fed me honey, so I grew more and more. Then I made a pupa, where I could snooze and snore. When I woke up, I was a bee, ready to explore. Bees are very tidy, and the hive stays very clean. So before I left, I did my best to make my old home gleam. I stretched one wing, I stretched the other. I did a little wiggle. I shook my legs and danced about. Then I began to giggle. I'm a very different bee. I gave a joyful cry. Come on, my friends called out to me. It's time for you to fly. I found it very hard at first. My wings felt very sore. But as I kept on practicing, I found I could do more. I zipped off through the flowers, playing chase and having fun. But far too soon the sunlight dimmed. Our flying time was done. I saw a pretty flower and dived on it with glee. Look at all that lovely pollen, waiting just for me. I'd watched the other bees at work, so I knew what to do. I drank my fill of nectar and gathered pollen too. Carrying my heavy load, I flew back to the hive and gave the pollen to the workers waiting just inside. With the pollen stored away, I took a look around and came back to the nursery full of life and sound. Baby bees were everywhere, stretching legs and shaking wings. Seeing babies learn to fly is such a lovely thing. Then some workers called to me, "Hey, quick, come and see." A cell was breaking open, and out crawled a little bee. Queen bees lay eggs in the cells of a beehive. A few days later, a little grub hatches out of the egg. Worker bees feed the grub honey and pollen to help it grow. After about a week, the workers put a cozy lid on the top of the cell, and the grub inside starts to change into an adult or pupate. About 10 days later, the new little bee is ready to chew its way out of the cell. It cleans the cell before it goes, leaving it all ready for a new egg to be laid. New bees learn how to fly very quickly because they copy other bees. Once it can fly, the little bee buzzes from flower to flower, drinking nectar and carrying pollen back to the worker bees inside the hive, who store it ready to make honey to feed the colony. The end. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Ruby Lee the Bumblebee, a bee of possibility. Story by Dawn Matheson. Pictures by Pamela Barcita. Ruby Lee the bumblebee, the cutest bee you'll ever see. Dressed in stripes of yellow and black, with silvery wings upon her back. Her big bee eyes, so friendly and bright, are framed in long lashes that suit her just right. Her ruby red cheeks are warm and sunny, and her charming smile is as sweet as honey. For her fuzzy body, round as a ball, her dainty wings seem much too small to zip or zoom or fly at all. But that doesn't stop her, no sirree. She's Ruby Lee the bumblebee, a bee of possibility. Those tiny wings too small for flight, yet she scoots through the air. Oh, what a sight! On warm sunny days, without a doubt, you'll find her in the garden, buzzing about. There and here and there, making loops-the-loops through the air. See how she dances from flower to flower? How can it be that she has such power? Those little wings aren't meant to fly, yet she's able to do it. Just how and why? Her amazing power comes from heaven above, a special gift from God with love. So you see, my wee one, it's no mystery. God wants us to be all we can be, like Ruby Lee the bumblebee, a bee of possibility. So the very next time you aren't sure you can, just remember that God has a plan. Believe it, trust it, know that it's true. An example of this has been given to you in Ruby Lee the bumblebee, a bee of possibility. The end. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. The Bee Tree by Patricia Polacco. I'm tired of reading, Grandpa, Mary Ellen sighed. I'd rather be outdoors running and playing. So you don't feel like reading, eh? Feel like running, do you? Then I expect this is just the right time to find a bee tree, he said, taking down a jar and putting on his lucky hat. What's a bee tree, Grandpa? Mary Ellen asked. Well, it's where the bees make their home. It's where they keep the honey, the sweetest in the land, Grandpa chirped excitedly. But we already have honey, Grandpa, Mary Ellen said. Ah, but not honey like this, her Grandpa answered with a wink. Mary Ellen and her Grandpa put on their coats and went outdoors. They walked past the hollyhocks to the garden and found bees gathering pollen from the flowers. Her Grandpa carefully trapped some in the glass jar, making sure not to hurt them. When he was sure that he had enough, he smiled and leaned close to Mary Ellen. They'll take the pollen back to the hive to make it into honey, and we'll be right behind them. Then he slowly loosened the lid of the jar and let one single bee escape. It stayed on the mouth of the jar for a moment, flew straight up, then buzzed toward the cornfield. Quick now, run! Grandpa called out as he began to chase the bee. Just then, Mrs. Govlock from down the creekway was walking baby Sylvester in his carriage. Mary Ellen and her Grandpa ran by them. We're off to find a bee tree today, Grandpa shouted. I haven't done that since I was a girl, Mrs. Govlock said excitedly. May I come too? Grandpa motioned her to follow, and the three of them were off and running. Baby Sylvester laughed out loud as his carriage bumped and bounced through the rows of corn. Honk! Went a goose as it waddled after them. As they came from the cornfield and crossed Dietz Junction, Einar Tundevold came around the bend on his squeaky old bike. Where are you all going in such a hurry? He asked. A bee tree! Mary Ellen puffed as the foursome scurried by. Chasing a bee to its tree? This I would like to do also, he said, as he stood up and pedaled faster. The wheels of his bike went twiddle twiddle squeak. Their boots slapped the ground. The buggy pitched and swayed, and the goose honked as they ran after that bee. The bee swooped down, stopped, held in midair, then circled past them and headed straight for the St. Joe River. Olav Lungheim, while strolling on the nearby shore with the charming Herman sisters Petra and Dorma, looked up and noticed the commotion coming toward them. Where are you all going? He called out. To a bee tree we are going, Einar Tundevold puffed as he pedaled by. Can we come too? The two lovely ladies pleaded. Fast! You'll have to run, Einar said. We don't care. Let's go! The three shouted as they raced after him. Slap, bump, honk, twiddle, twiddle, squeak. thump, they all went as they sped down the road after that bee. Klondike! Bertha Fitchworth, just back from an expedition in the Yukon, had car trouble next to the road. She looked up just in time to see everybody running by. You say you're after a bee tree? She shrieked. Sounds that won't be easy, but eureka, what an adventure! She sprinted along behind them. The bee dipped and soared as it made its way out of sight. But Grandpa carefully let another out, and the chase was on again. The noisy merry bunch galloped up over Bird Talk Fellow Ridge, only to run smack dab into Fiduciary Longdrop's herd of goats. The goats bleated and bucked as the people clambered through them. "What-ho!" Fiduciary called out. "You're gonna scare me, goats!" "A bee tree!" a voice called back. With that, Fiduciary tooted his flute, and he and his flock joined the chase. "Bounding Billy's, this will be great," he said on a dead run. 3 traveling musicians looked up just in time to see a thundering stampede of goats, buggies, people, and bikes coming straight for them. "Why are they all running, Pa?" one of the boys asked his father. "We're after that bee," Grandpa said, pointing at the small dot in the sky. "It's leading us to a bee tree," Mary Ellen wailed as she streaked by them. "Come on, Klondike," Bertha chortled as she huffed past. Slap, bump, bleat, honk, twiddle, twiddle, squeak, thump. They went as they ran. Hoofs clattered, rows of corn were parted. Nothing really mattered but chasing that bee. They ran through Griner's Bluff and into Bishop's Meadow, around Dead Man's Tree, and then to Bird Talk Hollow. As they ran down the hollow, the bee took blinding speed and disappeared from their sight. They all stopped to catch their breath just in front of Dunk's Woods. Grandpa handed the jar with the last bee in it to Mary Ellen, and she let it out. Sure enough, it flew straight and low right into Dunk's Woods. "It's the bee tree," Grandpa whispered. "That's where the honey will be, but we'll need plenty of smoke." Everyone set about to build a smoke fire from twigs and damp leaves. When the smoke had quieted the bees, Grandpa balanced on Einar's bicycle and reached into the tree. As he pulled out small pieces of honeycomb, he dropped them into some of baby Sylvester's spare clean diapers. That, Klondike, Bertha was holding. Mary Ellen tied them into neat little bundles, and Mr. Lugenheim put them into the baby carriage. The musicians played merrily as the Herman sisters danced. Grandpa invited everyone back to the house for baking powder biscuits, fresh brewed tea, and of course, the honey. There was music, dancing, tall tales, and ruckus laughter as they all buzzed about the sweet adventure of that day. Grandpa took Mary Ellen inside away from the crowd. "Now, child, I am going to show you what my father showed me, and his father before him," he said quietly. He spooned the honey onto the cover of one of her books. "Taste," he said, almost in a whisper. Mary Ellen savored the honey on her book. "There is such sweetness inside of that book, too," he said thoughtfully. "Such things, adventure, knowledge, and wisdom. But these things do not come easily. You have to pursue them, just like we ran after the bees to find their tree. So you must also chase these things through the pages of a book." Then he smiled and hugged her. From that day on, Mary Ellen never again complained about her reading. She found it to be every bit as exciting as a wild chase through the Michigan countryside and as sweet as the honey from a bee tree. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. The Bee Who Lost Her Buzz. Illustrated by Richard Merritt. Written by Jennifer Waddle. Little Bee saw a field of sunflowers. Everything was yellow and bright. There was the yellow sun, yellow butterflies, and of course, yellow flowers with delicious pollen to eat. Little Bee raced ahead and shouted, "Look at all the pollen for me!" You see, pollen was Little Bee's favorite food in the whole world. Little Bee flew on to the next field and looked back. She saw the other bees way behind. "Good," thought Little Bee. "That means there will be more pollen for me!" Little Bee flew to the first flower and gathered as much pollen as possible. Racing from one flower to the next, Little Bee left no pollen for the other bees. One friend called after Little Bee and said, "You are taking all the pollen! Please leave some for me!" But Little Bee didn't listen. There was too much sweet pollen to gather, and it was yummy indeed. Next, Little Bee flew to a garden of poppies. Everything was red and bright. There was a red barn, red clucking hens, and of course, red flowers with delicious pollen to eat. Little Bee quickly took all the pollen from the poppies. Oh, how full Little Bee felt! Suddenly, Little Bee couldn't buzz. As the other bees arrived, they saw Little Bee feeling miserable. "What is wrong?" they asked. With tears, Little Bee said, "I ate too much pollen and now I cannot buzz." For the first time, Little Bee realized how taking all the pollen was a selfish thing to do. "I am sorry," Little Bee said. "From now on, I will share." The other bees gathered around. "Thank you, Little Bee," they said. "We will wait with you until you get your buzz back." After a few moments, a tiny buzz was heard and everyone cheered. Little Bee could buzz again. Together, they flew to a meadow of wildflowers. Everything was colorful and bright. There was a colorful rainbow, colorful hummingbirds, and of course, colorful flowers with delicious pollen to eat. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. The Bee Man. Written by Lori Krebs, illustrated by Melissa Iway. Here is my grandpa, who's known in our town as the Bee Man. Here is his jacket, with zippered up hood that covers his face just the way that it should when he visits his hives as the Bee Man. Here are his gloves, made of cotton and leather, protecting his hands in all kinds of weather when he tends to his hives as the Bee Man. Here is the beehive, where all the bees sleep, tucked into a box called a shallow or deep, and then placed on a bench by the Bee Man. Here is the smoker that quiets the bees, and a hive tool that opens the beehive with ease for a much closer look by the Bee Man. Here is the queen bee, who does her job well and lays tiny eggs in a 6-sided cell. She's the heart of the hive, says the Bee Man. Here is a drone bee with big bulging eyes and a large appetite supporting his size. He mates with the queen, adds the Bee Man. Here are the workers, 10,000 or more, who gather the nectar to bring back and store in honeycomb cells for the Bee Man. Here are the house bees with swift-moving wings that dry up the nectar a worker bee brings, making honey for me and the Bee Man. Here's the extractor. It's clickety-clack, removing the honey from frames on its rack and filling up jars for the Bee Man. Here's some of the honey, returned to the hive. It's food for the bees to help them survive the long winter days near the Bee Man. Here are the bees, protected from harm, inside the hive, huddled cozy and warm, so they'll be here next year, says the Bee Man. Here is the wagon filled up to the brim with bottles of honey collected by him and brought to the house by the Bee Man. Here are the muffins all warm and delicious and dripping with honey on Grandma's best dishes. I'm glad that my grandpa's the Bee Man. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Flight of the Honeybee by Raymond Huber, illustrated by Brian Lovelock. The honeybee is one of the smallest creatures in the world, but it may be the most important for life on Earth. It is the planet's greatest pollinator, moving pollen from one plant to another, causing flowers to produce seeds and fruits. Honeybees can live in the wild or in boxes made by beekeepers. A honeybee can't live alone. It's part of a family that works closely together. A bee is always changing jobs. First, she is a cleaner, then a babysitter, a builder, a guard, a scout, and finally, a harvester. This is the story of a scout. A bee the size of a cherry pit crawls from the hive. Her stripes glow golden in the morning sun. Scout has spent her whole life in the crowded hive. Now it is time for her to fly out and explore the world. Time to search for flowers from which to collect pollen and nectar for food. Her sister bees are inside, making honey. But will there be enough? The cold is coming, and Scout must find the last flowers of the fall. There are about 50,000 female bees in a hive, and very few males. Scout's wings hum to life, so fast they are almost invisible. Lifting her into the wide sky, she rises in a spiral up and away from the hive. Scout remembers what she passes as she flies, so later she can return home. She knows the sun will guide her too. Bees navigate using sunlight, landmarks, and smell. They also have a magnetic sense that is like a built-in compass. Scout flies swift and straight as an arrow. The wind buffets her, ruffling the fine hairs on her face. But she keeps on steadily and rides out the rapids. Eyes as black as polished stones are searching, seeking a splash of color below. An arresting smell drifts on the breeze. Scout locks onto this scent. She flies over a clearing, and spread before her is a marvelous meadow, an ocean of flowers. Bees are furry, even their eyeballs. The hair helps them sense changes in the wind. Bees have a powerful sense of smell. They use their antennae to pick up scents. Bees can smell in stereo, each antenna smelling in a different direction. A flash of feathers. A hungry blackbird swoops for the kill, but Scout zips down and escapes into the trees, weaving between tangled twigs. Many creatures eat honeybees, including other insects, such as wasps and dragonflies, as well as spiders, frogs, birds, and mammals such as bears and badgers. When the coast is clear, Scout is drawn to the sea of flowers again. She settles on a velvety petal and plunges her head into the flower. Here is sunken treasure, a cup of sweet nectar. The tip of her tongue, shaped like a miniature spoon, sips the syrup. Scout zigs and zags from flower to flower, spreading pollen around. The pollen clings to her fuzzy body, a sprinkle of sun powder. Bees are charged with static electricity during flight, which attracts pollen to their bodies. They have an extra stomach in which they carry nectar home. Scout has finished drinking. She must tell her sister bees about this field of blue, but a thundercloud cloaks the sun. All at once the cloud bursts. Rain batters Scout to the ground. She crawls under a leaf as hailstone bombs explode around her. Bees avoid rain and storms. Raindrops can damage them and chill their wing muscles, leaving them grounded. The downpour passes. Scout picks up the scent of her hive and follows it. Outside the hive, there's a squad of guard bees. A yellow-jacketed enemy is attacking. Scout knows that twitchy way of flying. It's a wasp. The wasp grabs Scout as she glides in to land. It raises its stinger, but the guards move in, wrestling the wasp with their legs. Wasps invade beehives to steal honey and eat baby bees. Honeybees sting only to defend themselves. They will die after stinging larger animals. Scout is safe inside the hive at last. She begins a dance on the wax comb. An audience gathers, captivated by the floral scent on Scout's body. Scout spins a story in dance, every movement a sentence. Scout waggles, twists, and turns, describing the route to the blue meadow. She pauses only to share samples of sweet nectar. Scout repeats her dance for many sister bees. The bees' dance is a complex language that can communicate millions of different messages. Now that the sister bees know where to find the meadow, hundreds of bees take off. They flick from the hive like golden pebbles. Bees need to harvest nectar from more than 2 million flowers to make enough honey to fill just one jar. Back in the hive, Scout passes her precious nectar to the house bees. They put it in the comb and fan it with their wings. The nectar will be transformed into liquid gold, honey for the bees to eat. Nectar is mostly water until the bees dry and thicken it by beating their wings, converting it to honey. Scout visits the nursery, where babysitter bees pluck the pollen from her body and mix it with honey to feed the babies. Nearby sits the queen, long and lustrous. She is mother of all bees, laying eggs that look like tiny grains of rice. The queen can lay thousands of eggs a day. It is the job of the few male bees in the hive to fertilize a new queen. Exhausted after her mission, Scout rests her silvery wings for a spell. Soon she will join her sister bees in the blue meadow for the fall harvest. With enough honey, her family can now survive the winter. Scout's daring flight has been worth every beat of her wings. In its lifetime, a bee can travel more than 500 miles, or 800 kilometers, on flower runs, until its wings eventually wear out. Thanks for watching! Click subscribe! The Very Greedy Bee by Steve Smallman, illustrated by Jack Tickle. In a busy, buzzy beehive lived a very greedy bee. All the other bees worked hard making honey and cleaning the hive, but the greedy bee spent all day gobbling pollen and guzzling nectar. Slurp, slurp, burp, slurp, slurp, burp. The greedy bee wouldn't share his nectar with anyone. He wouldn't even let a tired ladybug sit on his flower. "Find your own flower," he shouted. "This one is mine. Eek! Mine!" And when, one day, the greedy bee found a meadow full of the biggest, juiciest flowers he had ever seen, he decided not to tell anyone. "Yummy!" he buzzed. "Lots and lots of flowers, and they're all for me! Wow!" The greedy bee whizzed and bizzed from flower to flower, slurping and burping and growing fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter. At last his tummy was full, and he settled down on a big pink flower in the warm yellow sunshine and fell fast asleep. When the greedy bee woke up, it was dark. He tried to fly, but his tummy was so roly-poly that he went down instead of up and crashed, biff, bang, thump, to the ground. "I'm scared," cried the greedy bee, "and I don't know how to get home." Then he saw two glowing eyes in the long grass. "Eek!" he cried. "A monster is coming to eat me!" But it wasn't a monster. It was two friendly fireflies, their bottoms glowing in the dark. "What's wrong?" they asked. "I'm too full to fly," wailed the greedy bee, "and I can't walk home in the dark." "Follow us," said the fireflies, and they all set off on the long, long journey home. Through forests of flowers and squishy mud, over the hills and under the stars, trudged the greedy bee. He had never walked so far, and he was very tired. "Nearly there," called the fireflies. Then they heard the whoosh of rushing water. "I'm almost home!" cried the greedy bee excitedly. "It's the stream!" And it was, but his hive was on the other side of it. "Oh no," said the greedy bee, sadly flopping down on the grass. "How will I ever get across?" "We'll help you," said a tiny ant with a big leaf. The ant and his friends flipped the big leaf into the water. "Jump on!" they cried. Helped by the fireflies, the greedy bee and the ants made their way, splishing and splashing, to the other side of the stream. "Hooray, I'm home!" cheered the greedy bee. "Where have you been?" asked the other bees. "I overslurped," said the greedy bee. "I would never have made it home if my new friends hadn't been so kind. Now I'm going to share my best honey with them. Would you like some too?" "Yes," said the other bees. "Let's have a party." Everyone enjoyed a midnight feast of yummy, runny honey, all except for one very sleepy, very happy, but not so greedy bee. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe